Oscar shouted the order to attack, and men from all three Dusklander forces swarmed from around the trees and attacked the invading Heartland's force from the flanks and in the center at once. When Oscar and his men leaped through the flames of the burning trench and tore into the Heartlander middle, the attackers were already turned to both sides by the flanking attacks. The Dark Hollow men tore into their opponents in a storm of violence and flashing steel. Oscar's armor was on fire. The dried mud, moss, grass, and cattails stuck on him, lit ablaze when he jumped through the flames. Mist and smoke were everywhere now, and confusion took over the battlefield. Oscar swung and twisted his sword, killing Heartlander soldiers with every movement. He spun and decapitated a man, ducked a sword swinging for his own neck, and swept the attacker off his feet by grabbing his lower leg and yanking him down. Oscar jumped on the man, bringing his bastard sword down through the Heartlander's breastplate and pinning him squirming, screaming, and dying body into the snow. Another Heartlander was swinging a hand axe at him from behind, and Oscar rolled off, pulled the dagger Lord Sinclair had given him as a wedding present from his boot, and threw it at his assailant, catching him between his eastern green eyes. Flailing, the blonde-haired soldier fell. Oscar quickly regained his feet and removed his sword from the first man he had pinned, turned and swung in a wicked arc to take down another Heartlander soldier. And another. And another. Oscar felt the familiarity of the moment, like he had lived it before. Heartlander soldiers seemed to approach him just asking for death. Their swings were off, their forms were bad, and they were slow and they hesitated. They were scared, and their fear somehow energized Oscar and made him swing harder and cut more cruelly. The men died on the end of his blade repeatedly as Oscar's eyes glazed over, and he no longer thought for himself. The Knight of the Dusklands was no longer there. He was in his dreams, and the mist rose all around him as the monsters came close. Oscar did not walk past them this time. Instead, he used his sword to cut down one grotesque mutated monster after another. They screamed and bled as Oscar dismembered them, removing legs and arms with swipes of his sword. He killed and killed and killed, and they kept coming. He could not tire. He could not quit. He knew if he did, he would never get home to Thule, never see their son or daughter born, never know what it was like to be a father. Then Oscar saw it, the armored figure in the mist that always came to him in his dreams. The Dusklander raised his weapon, pointing the gore-covered bastard sword at his dream adversary. Would he kill it this time, or kill himself? Or is it Oscar's turn to be struck down again? This time the Dream Knight did not stand still to wait for Oscar's decision on the outcome. Oscar silently saluted the knight with his sword and blocked the first blow, easily deflecting the knight's swing. The knight recovered and swung in a broad downward arc, and Oscar grabbed the sword near the crosspiece with his off-hand mailed glove. He felt the sword bite into the same hand he had cut open during his blood oath with Thule. Thule. Oscar became enraged, hazily remembering his promises to her, his blood oath, his vows. The thought strengthened his resolve. He would come home. Oscar wrenched the sword from the Dream Knight's hand with brute strength and turned it on him, swinging hard and knocking the knight's helmet off. He followed the strike with an arcing slice from his own sword and caught the Dream Knight in the eye as it backed away from him, blood spattering and falling from the wound. Then Oscar saw it. A flash of long platinum hair flying out from a bun that it was tied in. It looked like a woman. A beautiful woman. And Oscar had just cut out her eye. The dream state began to slowly fade as Oscar heard a battle cry from behind him. It was the men from the Maw and Farmore charging past, pushing the confused and stunned Heartlanders back through the pass. Many of the enemies were dropping their swords and surrendering. Others turned and ran as Dusklander troops pushed them back out of the pass and corralled them south through the damaged blood fort. Oscar stood there heaving deep breaths as he recovered, a confused witness to the vast pile of bodies surrounding him. The flames that burned on his scorched armor were now gone, but the looks that remained on the faces of the dead men that were stacked haphazardly around him were of complete terror. What happened here? Oscar remembered the fighting starting, jumping through the flames, and then it was like he was in one of his dreams. The mist rose, the monsters were everywhere, and he killed them wherever he found them. He killed like a possessed berserker, he and his men cutting down what seemed to be hundreds of men now, all so he could get back home to Thule. And he was somehow alive. Oscar scanned the past nervously. The mist and smoke were thick, and suddenly everything was eerily quiet, while he stared around in a wide-eyed astonishment. He didn't see Corbry anywhere. Oscar assumed his quirky second-in-command and the remains of the Dark Hollow Company must have accompanied the men from the Maw and far more in routing the fleeing Heartlands division back down into the valley. He looked down and saw General Nova's unmoving form at his feet, blood gushing from her left eye and down her face and neck as she lay there deathly still. He mistook her for the knight from his dreams, the one who had stabbed him in his side. Oscar chuckled. He hadn't expected a woman. He was just beginning to feel less than chivalrous, deciding on whether to deal her a death blow out of compassion, when Oscar felt a sharp pain bite into his side. It pushed violently deeper and then agonizingly twisted. The breath left Oscar. He was unable to scream as his lung collapsed.